It's the weekly 30-30 trading list on the ASX. We're looking at the top 30 momentum companies over the last quarter and the top 30 launchpad companies. Those are companies whose momentum has improved the most over the last week. Gary Glover has been through the list and pulled out his favourite charts for us to go through today. Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great, Chris. How you going?
Well, it's the day before a very long weekend, so most people are pretty excited about that, but nobody could be more excited than to hear what you've unpacked from the charts. So have you found any gems in there now that the market's rallied a bit?
Yes, probably a lot of small ones in the list there this week there, and some big moves too, like just some small stocks really popping out of the range here. So this is number 3 on the list there, Western Mines there, which is WMG. So as you can see there, had a massive pop, pretty big volume there, but pretty hard to sort of trade that. I think number 4 is, this has had a bit of a run there, a few little congestions there, but again, pretty bullish out of the gates here. Probably hard to trade that, not too bad, but yeah. Liontown's had obviously that big move there, take over, and then sort of congestion there, so just hanging in tight there. First one there I thought was interesting was sort of number 7. I just thought this was interesting there because there's our sort of VCP in there, Chris. So we've had that pullback, secondary pullback as well. So saw some volume through here, dried up here, saw a bit of volume again, dried up through here, and then we popped out of this range here there, So
and the volume, is that pretty healthy on that as it rallies out?
Yeah, no, exactly right. So nice strong volume bar there to sort of follow there. So I like it to sort of just break that sort of B wave. I think closing above that mark would have been good enough for me. But breaking above here again is sort of secondary, maybe an add in here. But yeah, this looks okay for a small one. But that's the sort of setup we're looking for. And there is a few of those actually out there. So we'll push on here. HMX I thought was interesting there, just because pretty big volume. So again, look at those sort of moves there. Things are moving really fast here. This is pretty small, so it's gone from 5 to sort of 10 here. I'd probably just be waiting for a bit of a pause on that, but definitely a stock moving. RSG actually, obviously some of the golds are really moving here. That Resolute was sort of one that we covered quite a while ago. I think remember we were talking about it breaking out of 20 here a while back. So it did break out of there, came back and almost sort of sat on top of that, and then sort of gone again. So look, this has had a pretty strong run here now. I think it's sort of, getting a bit vertical here. Maybe wanting to sort of see some sort of pause here first, but yeah, definitely those golds have performed pretty well. But yeah, I'm not sure I'd be chasing them here. I'd be waiting for a little congestion pause there. RXL, another small one that's had a little bit of a pop. BRB, I think that SRN had a one that we covered previously. Had a bit of a pop and sort of congesting here. Probably this one here I just sort of I highlighted just because the volume is pretty decent there, Chris. I know it's had a bit of a trading halt there and obviously gapped up on some pretty decent news there, but the volume stayed pretty steady here. So this is probably one just to keep an eye on for a bit of a congestion there, but some pretty strong buying through that stock there. So you're really looking for that to have a bit of a pause, bit of a congestion, have some sort of shimmy or sideways move, have a bit of a correction in time, and then you can kind of reassess that. DTM, it's okay here, probably too small for me. KZA, I think was number 18. Again, pretty small, probably too small for me, but do like the cluster of volume there. But yeah, probably too small for me. AZS. Again, this is sort of, here's our VCP again, Chris, there. So nice pullback in here, tighter pullback in there, and then a nice little tight congestion in there. So the thing we saw there, we saw a bit of volume up into the highs there, bit of a pullback, light volume. We saw some pretty big volume here on this drive, up into the high, and then congestion again. Now we're seeing some volume through here, start to build here. Saw that classic perfect little congestion under the high there and pop through there. So there's the sort of pattern we're looking for, that VCP, and then popping through there. So yeah, it still looks okay, this. But yeah, you can see how when they pop here, they get on with it pretty quickly. I'd say 3 or 4 days, you normally sort of get to 80% of your target there pretty quickly. So that does look all right, even though it's already sort of popped. WGX, another sort of gold stock which had a pretty good move here. Again, probably getting a little bit. The thing concerned about here is, look, when they sort of took off the low, we had we gapped. So basically like a breakaway gap, sort of run up here. There's a few gaps in the middle here, so you might sort of, a few gaps in between there. But this almost looks a little exhaustive here at the end, Chris. Like that's sort of gapped up into, when you get an exhaust, when a breakaway gap, you can get an exhaustive gap as well. So you'd be, if you're long this one here, you'd be definitely tightening up your stops there, just because they have had a pretty good move. So that's our quarterly momentum. On our dailies there, we saw some stocks really popping here just on just 1 day moves here. So 40X has had a big jump there yesterday. Obviously followed through again today. Big move and big volume. They always sort of stand out. So again, you can follow those sort of initial big moves, get some follow through, but then after they've really popped for a few days, you're really looking for them to sort of congest and dry up. WMG was number 3. Again, big pop in that 1 day. Maybe you follow through the next day as well, but they get a bit risky once they've sort of moved here. So unless you're sort of catching these things on the first day here, it's pretty risky there. I think normally 2 or 3 days up, then they'll congest here. So you're just looking for these things to probably to congest here now, but they've had big moves on pretty big volume. This is a small one there. Volume's okay there without being exceptional. BML number 6. It's had a bit of a pop there, but it is a pretty choppy sort of stock here. It comes back deep in the range here, which is a bit of a worry. So it kind of looks more of a sort of sidewaysy type of move for me. PNN, another one that's had a bit of a pop here. Again, it's come back pretty deep into the range there. So not really jumping out at me. I know Cettire had sort of come back into the, so this has had a bit of a pullback in here, obviously gone to a slight new high, pull back in the range again, just started to move up again here. So this is probably not a bad sign here. I mean, it's just sort of stayed, swing high here, back above the 50 here. Doesn't seem to, not it's a stock that sort of doesn't, does seem to break, to and from the 50. So not, not that important for this particular stock there, but that's sort of looking constructive there. AMI was sort of one that I thought was okay there, just because I thought this had a decent little pop in here, some volume, and largely sort of gone sideways sort of ever since. Come back and retested the low here, and then just started to move. There's a little bit of volume coming in here, but again, it's probably too small for me, but just one that's sort of looking interesting there. And then we saw Cettire CTT actually had a bit of a pop the other day. I see Brett Blundy has now gone, I think he's up to about 10% here, Chris, holding there for Cettire CTT. So might be sort of something interesting going on. We saw sort of Solly Lou come onto Myers there, early, and then that thing continued to, keep going higher. So we've got Brett Blundy sort of coming on the register for Cettire CTT is pretty interesting. The fact that it's sort of, I know this stock's come a long way back here. I think, weekly, look at that decline there, massive.
It's brutal.
You see here the volumes, so the volume's dried up here too. So literally the selling has started to dry up here, started to sort of congest, and it's sort of starting to build here off this sort of low. So we've sort of got a first high low in there. Got a, someone's starting to build up a bit of stake in there. This is one to keep an eye on. Just sort of that corporate potential there. I thought that was interesting. CEL's had a small pop there. WA1, thought this one was interesting here. Just again, looks like that's a pretty impulsive move here. You could sort of argue this is a bit of a VCP or a bit of a ABC correction there. So A, B, sort of C, started to come back at a pretty deep range here. Starting to sort of build off here. Had a 3 days up, went sideways to 3 and then popped up again. So this potentially might be building here again. volumes aren't as impressive as they were through here. So that's not getting me super excited here, seeing the volumes a lot lighter there, but somewhat constructive there. What else we got in there? BVR. Again, pretty small, bit of a pop there, but pretty messy stock. ETR. This is one that I did actually sort of catch my eye here, Chris, just because this has got an early stages of VCP setting up in here. So we've had this pullback in here, little ABC, gone for a rally again. All the volume that's gone through there on that run. So we had not bad volume on the first run, pulled back on pretty light volume. We started to see, accumulation down in the low here. Got excited on this run here. Volume sort of dried up a little bit through here. Started to see volume at the low. Now we're seeing volume again there. So if we look at some of those sort of successful patterns there, this is sort of reminiscent of those sort of patterns. So looks pretty constructive there. If I go out to my weekly, over there. Didn't like that too much. But yeah, just looks pretty positive. I did have a quick look at this company there. 37 mil market caps are pretty small. In the clean conversion technology there, basically got they're converting old tires into oil and energy matter, and obviously it's a bit sort of I guess sort of that clean technology,
Clean,
sort
green,
of
new age,
new
industry,
environmental sort of carbon friendly sort of stuff there. So it's definitely topical at the moment. Interesting sector. Saw Jeffrey Wilson on the register there for around about 4 or 5% of this actually company. So doesn't seem to be involved, but doesn't seem to be a major shareholder. So, but yeah, just interesting register. Interesting company, doing some interesting things. So it looks like they've just announced a bit of an upgrade to the factory size. So sort of indicating they're getting close to sort of break even. It's probably one of those, kind of reminds me of CLG, which is they're converting old printers cartridges there. So close the loop. Yeah. So and that sort of looked interesting to me, but then it actually went up to the high there and then it just waned off here. So it never really punched through. So it's held up here, but it hasn't really kept going. So they've definitely got some risk there just because they're small, but I do like the volume. So it's when we look at all those successful VCPs,
the volumes in the
exactly
rally.
like this.
There's a little bit of low where it changes hands. You could call that accumulation. Breaks out with rally, drifts back lighter.
But it is small. This one's very small here, only talking about 37 mil. But I think it's companies worth having a closer look at. The register is interesting sort of sector, definitely topical, definitely a big push towards that sort of carbon friendly type of companies there. So definitely want to keep an eye on there. As you say, those VCPs can take a little while to set up. But yeah, this is one that did. This was the one that got the big tick for me to sort of really circle and keep an eye on there. And the last one there was IVR. Just again, had a bit of a pop out of the low, congested, and another pop here. Probably a little bit small here, but sort of typical of the companies. We just got lots of, it's pretty volatile out there. We're getting plenty of movement there. But yeah, seeing quite a few. Seeing the good thing I'm seeing in the market, Chris, is we're seeing, stocks like REA sort of car sales, Seek, Zero, was it now corporate travel? So a lot of those growth stocks are actually starting to pop here. So money's starting to come back into the top end of sort of growth, and I think you'll sort of see some. I think I covered 360 on the weekend there. That's just sort of tightening up here at a bit of a critical level there. So the 360, I think things like Temple and Webster just bounced off a big long-term trend line as well off that level. So DDR as well, Dicker data there. If you go and look at I think the weekly, that's come back to the old It's come back to an old high here back in 2019, so a bit of a big level, about 2/3 of the range here. So just seeing a lot of those growth stocks, some of the big ones start to move, and some of the mids ones here are just, they're stabilizing. They haven't taken off here yet, but looking kind of promising there. And just, as we know, sort of the market filters through the top, big caps first, and they sort of maybe move into the mid caps sort of second when they get a bit more confident. And then when they start running, then people start moving into the small caps. So the small caps are still underperforming relative there. So it is interesting that quite a few of the smalls in the report have popped. So you're starting to see some risk on starting to come back in the market. So I don't know what your average momentum score is there, but I'd hazard to say that momentum score has crept up over the last few weeks.
Definitely has. It's down a little bit from last week. The momentum score, so the momentum profile was up towards 40s, and we hadn't seen that for a while. It's back in the mid 30s, but it definitely it's significantly higher than February and March, like significantly. And as you talk about the growth stocks, when generating this list, also applied the ASX top 300 filter. So we just look at the top 30 companies, top 30 launchpad companies in the 300. And surprisingly, that looked a lot like your portfolio. The one you went through on Tuesday, that list, there was a lot of them in the top 30.
We're just seeing those sort of stocks here. So, that's why everyone's sort of saying it's a bit of a stock pickers market. I agree with that. I think you just got to be in the right sort of sectors here. Look, the key thing here is we keep sort of talking about this, Chris, is that, when the markets sort of have that pullback, we had a market come back 6-7 weeks. What you're looking for is the stocks that have sort of held up the best. So even at 360, if you look at that 360, the interesting aspect there is that our market found a low in October. You can see that was October there for 360. So it had found a low earlier, and then by October there, that was making a higher low. So, I think sort of that the corporate travel the other day, when the market was getting belted 6 or 7 weeks down, you can see that was sort of staying relatively tight, and same for SEEK as well. So when the market is getting hammered and your stocks are holding up nice and steady, showing relative strength, that's what we're looking for. So, for the new traders out there, oftentimes they're looking for the big V-shaped corrections. So they want to see, because it's come back near the low. Oh, it's come back near the low. I want to buy that. It's a big deep. I might be able to get that big move again. But that's the common mistake made by new traders. Experienced traders, the best traders on the planet will tell you exactly the same thing. Look for relative strength in the stock. So the most successful traders that I know, the ones that I follow, the ones that I've seen with the best trading records, all say similar things. Looking for stocks that show relative strength, that hold up the best. So when the market, is going through those sort of shakeouts, that's the time just to sort of sit there and monitor the market. And then we start seeing things popping out here, we want to go with them as well. So just looking for stocks that are sort of congesting sideways and then just start to break up. Thought that Temple & Webster was pretty interesting there. And that's a massive trend line going back historically. Just started to tick up, and really, we don't want to jump in too early here. We want to see a swing high broken there, Chris. So we saw, this is our low here. We've sort of popped up here, come back, and then we've gone through that. So that would be the first place we'd want to be even looking at entering there, would be on a break of a swing high there. And so we just got to, even though this hasn't had a congestion there, if we're sort of trying to jump in too early here, we can always get hurt too much. The safest place is just to wait for a higher low to break out there. So we've seen that here now. It's come off a bit of a critical level, so worth watching here now. The beauty is here we've got a bit of momentum. Keep your sort of stop nice and tight. We're probably back in here. Again, we're not risking much, and then we've got all this upside potential there, which makes it a fantastic risk reward trade there. So that's all we can do. The thing about when you see congestions, then you can get a nice entry, and you can keep your stop nice and tight there. And then if it moves up out of the range, like we're seeing there with corporate travel, now with corporate travel, like I've sort of entered on this sort of little third VCP in here. So we've got our first VCP, a little second pullback, nice tight in here. We're starting to edge up in here, so got a little bit of a cheat in here. Started to see a bit of volume in there. broken up out of that range, added to the posi, and then she's gone. Okay, so we could have even added to this position here again on the break of this level here. So, and then we just a matter of basically moving our stop up here. So, you know, our stop might have been back under here originally. Now we're sort of edging it up. I mean, the 50-day moving average is probably a level which we're looking at, or maybe just underneath that. But, you know, pretty much our stop should be at break even now. So if the market pulls back here and we're all wrong, and then we got nothing to lose. If it keeps going here and opens the shoulders, then we got plenty to win here. So that's what generally the best traders will do, that try and get the break even relatively quickly, or reduce the risk. But then it's the sitting, Chris. This is where the big money is made, in the sitting. So if we can get positioned, get ourselves to break even, then we can just almost go on holidays and just monitor it every, you know, end of each day and see how our positions hopefully are ticking higher. So that's what we want to see. We want to get positioned and then just sit tight and not do too much. Okay, so
it worked for Nicholas Davis, didn't it?
Yeah, look, I'm personally guilty of over trading, looking to sort of add into it and trim, and so I've really tried to change that aspect of my trading the last sort of 12 to 18 months. So made some big improvements in my results by letting to sit, and also, you know, sitting patiently, waiting for good opportunities, and then once I'm in them, just moving getting my stop to sort of break even if it moves in the right direction, and then just sort of sitting tight, and not trying to move up too tightly, just give myself plenty of room. So in the early days, I'm probably too keen to move my stop up too quickly, and then it keeps going up, keeps sliding it up. But now I just sort of, you know, try and get near break even as hopefully as fast as I can without getting too close, and then really just give myself give myself room to be right. So and just sort of sitting tight.
Well, that's a good way to look back over the portfolio. Obviously, you've been monitoring and managing portfolios for a long time, but over the last few years, you've taken more time to reflect, review the trading, and review the portfolio as a whole. Is that where you've learned these lessons from?
51 years old and 20 years in the market. I'm still learning, Chris. So we've still got still plenty of room for improvement, and can still get better. So we definitely got to be constantly reviewing. That's something I hadn't done until about 3 years ago, was review on my trades, and that's been, you know, it's like reviewing a personality. It can be confronting, and exposes all your flaws as a person, and your mindset, things like that. But if we don't see it, then we don't know how to correct it. So that's the beauty of sort of trading. It does expose us as individuals, and it does highlight your sort of strengths and weaknesses as a person and as a trader. So so once we find those, then we can actually bring rules in to actually improve those, and, you know, correct your weaknesses and enhance your strengths.
That's a good note to end on. So thank you very much, Gary Glover from Novus Capital.
Thanks, Chris.
Gary's mentioned a few trading strategies: springs, false breaks, VCPs. Importantly, they're on the right-hand side, a whole playlist of them. Also on the right is his playlist from Tuesdays, which is his portfolio that he updates and looks at the shares that he's going to be trading that week. And on the left-hand side, that's Gary's Twitter handle if you want to follow him there.